the big institutions are likely doing.
Okay, theory is one thing, but let's see how this all comes together in a real trading day. We're going to retell the day's story, not with candles, but with these much deeper insights.
So the day starts out looking great for buyers. The market opens strong, but if you're watching the data, you can see them struggling to really push prices higher. Then comes the key moment. At the very peak of the day, the order flow data shows something shocking, literally zeros on the buy side. Aggressive buyers had just vanished. Demand completely dried up. That was the signal that everything was about to change.
And that failure was the turning point. It was like an open invitation for the sellers to take over. Once a key support level broke, the order flow confirmed it. Sellers were now in complete control, hitting the market hard. The day's entire bullish story flipped on its head and became bearish. And these tools made that plot twist obvious long before the final crash on the candle chart.
So what's the big takeaway here? What does this all mean for how we should approach the markets? It really requires a fundamental shift in your entire perspective.
First things first, you have to stop the knee-jerk reaction to big red and green candles. It's a trap. Reacting to a huge green candle often means you're buying at the top, and panicking on a big red candle means you're selling at the bottom. It's a reactive and usually a losing game.
The shift is from being a price chaser to becoming a market reader. You start using these tools to understand what the big players are trying to do. You're asking better questions. Are they accumulating a position down here? Are they trying to sell their holdings up here? Reading their intent lets you anticipate what might happen instead of just reacting after it already has.
And that's what it all comes down to. Every single day, the market tells a story. It's a narrative of conflict, of strategy, of victory and defeat. A standard chart just gives you the chapter titles, but the real story, the rich, detailed plot, is written in the order flow and the market structure. So the final question isn't about trying to predict the future, it's about understanding the present. So ask yourself, what story is your market telling you right now?
All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on Let's start with a really simple but powerful idea. To understand a huge mistake that so many people make in the financial markets, we actually need to talk about cricket for a second. Yeah, cricket. Specifically, what happens when you're completely outmatched and you don't even know it. Just picture it. You're standing there, and Jasprit Bumrah is about to bowl a 150-kilometer-per-hour scorcher. And what's in your hands? A plastic toy bat. It's not just a mismatch, right? It's a complete disaster waiting to happen. Well, what if I told you that this exact same scenario plays out every single day? Not on a cricket pitch, but in the stock market. And there it is. The cricket pitch is the derivatives market, and that plastic bat, well, that's the set of tools most retail traders are bringing to the fight. Every single day, thousands of people are stepping up to the plate, totally unprepared for the professional level game they've
Good evening, guys. Good evening, everyone. A quick sound check. Am I audible? Great. So today's session, we are taking it on how we can find out intent in market. And because intent is very important, and that is the difference between the price charts and our order flow charts. Because only when you get intent, you can get a move in the price. So that is why we look at initiative signals, initiative buyers, initiative sellers, because they tell us that yes, there is more intent in the market. Just a candlestick chart will not show you that intent. So that is where the book which we have got from Shai has this explained very well. And you have the price charts versus the order flow charts. So but the candlestick chart will not show you where there is intent and where there is initiative buying or initiative selling. That will only be seen in by means of order flow chart. And that is why we have this smart candlestick, which is on the screen. I'll come to the combo which we have here, and then we will get into the actual order flow chart also of 3 minutes as well as 30 minutes. And we will take today's data as an example, because we believe in dissecting latest information. So based on what has happened today, we can see what were the signals which were generated today, where we saw intent, where was the initiative signals coming in, and where was the good trades which we could have taken based on the intent shown. So we have this covered. This explanation is covered in the book. You can get the hard copy on Amazon, or you have vtrender.com/ebook is the link for the PDF. And you also have a Kindle edition of the book. You have this mentioned in the chapter 15, where structure meets order flow. So we have 3 levels of participants explained there. One is the passive participants, which just provide liquidity. They are just getting run over by the initiative players. Then you have the level 2, who are the responsive participants, who are reacting to moves, or who are the ones who had entered in taking profits or covering. And then we have the level 3 participants which we want to track, which are the initiative participants who create the move and who establish new positions. So we want to focus on level 3 participants. So we want to be in line with the initiative participants, because they are the ones who are establishing new positions and creating a fresh imbalance. So that is what we want to look out for. So coming back to the chart which we have on screen, this is the 3 window mode of the line charts of 3 instruments. On the left hand, we have the Nifty futures, the January futures, and then we have the 25,000 call and the 25,500 put. So what we want to see from today all day, from morning, where was that we got initiative signals in the futures, in the call and in the put, and where was the trades which we could take. So we will watch them on the line chart first. Because why this is useful, because in one screen you get to see all the 3 instruments, and we have always maintained the signals which come in sync with both in Nifty futures as well as in the option are the better ones, better quality ones. Because sometimes you may get initiative signals only in the options. That may be because of the option inventory getting upside down and being forced to cover. But if that signal is not matched in the futures, then it may not give you that bigger range. But if you're getting the signal, initiative signal in both the option as well as the futures, that is a much better probability of being a winner. So coming to this 3 window mode, we will share the URL for this. This is a very useful mode. You can see how in the first you have the Nifty futures. This is the opening bar where we opened. We had a gap up open. The gap up open in itself is not a blind buy. We need to get an IB signal after the gap up. That tells us that the buyers are wanting to take advantage of the higher open. So we got the first IB signal here at 924. So this is where you go long, and you have very clear rules about these IB signals, about when you have to take a long and what is the stop loss and what is the target. As you can see, I have the call chart parallelly placed, and you can see at the same time you also get an IB3 in the 25,000 call. So this, when you're getting the initiative signal in both the futures as well as the option, this is a very good setup to go long. You go long above the IB3 signal, and your stop loss would be the IB3 low, and the targets would be calculated respectively. So you can see how I will come to the order flow chart, the exact order flow chart, and we will look at how what were the exact levels to be taken and what were the targets which we got. So we have shared the URL to the 3-window mode. You can keep it open. You can yourself have that in play for the next settlement also. This will be good for this settlement, which is on the coming Tuesday. But once this series gets over and the new series start, we will have to build a new fresh 3-window mode based on the latest settlement. So this was the IB signal. You got two IB signals back to back. So both of them were good tradable setups. And only thing is, the first signal would be the better one because you would have got a early entry. You would have been first part of the bell curve. You would not have been late or the laggard. But the second one would be a little bit more in the middle of the curve. So you will need to know which entry is better, which is a initiative entry, which is a laggard entry. So the first signal coming at VWAP or above VWAP will be the best trade. Signals coming after that, you will keep getting more and more late into the party. So then you can see how this third IB3 was the one which could not give the respective target, and we'll come to that, and we'll see how once this was negated, the up move also was signaled over. And you can see right at this time, 9:51, you got an IS3 signal in the call. So very clearly the order flow which showed us that initiative buying is coming in at this level also told us that now they are booking out and the IS3 is formed. So once a IS3 is formed, and this came in as early as 9:51, just when the B period started. So we knew, thanks to this order flow signal, that if you are in long calls, it is time to book out. Yes, it was not a short reverse trade for here, but definitely calls were getting booked, and this IS3 was very significantly telling that the longs have to be booked. So we again then got another IS3 and then this third IS3 at VWAP. This was a telling sign. When you're breaking VWAP after a strong open, that tells you that the buyers are no longer there and now the seller is taking control. And you can see how the put got above VWAP and it gave the first IB signal at 10:27. So this was the first trade you could have taken in the put side. And we will come to the exact entry and the stop loss when we look at the 3-minute order flow chart of the put. And then you can see how again you got 3 IBs in the put, but again the best entry was the first signal. Here you would have been a good entry. And then what we saw was then the put went on to make these highs and it started to stall at a reference 340. I'll come to that when we look at the 30-minute order flow and the market profile chart. And same thing with this. The highs you see in the call of 25,000 was not any random number. This 508, which was the high today in the just when the B period started, has a very significant reference to it. And we will see that when we watch the 30-minute order flow in the market profile chart of this call. And the same thing here in the put, the lows which we made here at 150 also has a very important significance. So that is the reason we are using market profile and order flow as a combination, because market profile will show you the references, the bigger time frame references, and order flow will tell you what it is doing at that reference. So this 508, the high in the 25,000 call, was an IS30 VWAP from 2 days back. I'll show you that when we look at the market profile in the 30-minute order flow. And this 155 was a unvisited VPOC in this put. So when a VPOC is showing you support, it is holding, you know that this is not going down lower. And once it got back above VWAP and you got the IB3, you know it is time to go higher. And here, the highs here of 340 odd, multiple times we were hitting this highs and we were not able to take it out. And you can see how almost 3 to 4 attempts were made, but this was not taken out. And finally here in the K period, we got an IS3 here in the put. So this was telling us this 342 was VWAP from yesterday. So the VWAP in the puts from yesterday was holding the upside, and on the downside, the lows in the call was where the previous day's VWAP was. So here you can relate how you are taking support at previous day's VWAP, and in the call you can see how this test of previous day's VWAP gave us the next IB signal in the K period. So when you're getting here, what happened was in futures there was no IB signal, but it was a green bar. And this was holding. We will come to the order flow chart and we will see why this 25,200 became an important reference today. So yesterday's VWAP was just below it and we were expecting that VWAP to get tested, but that did not. But here the put was not yielding previous day's VWAP and the call was taking support. This IB3 at previous day's VWAP was a next good entry in long side calls. And this because this was complemented by the IS3 in the put at the same time. So that is why this 3 window mode is useful, because you get to see what is happening in all the 3 instruments and you can very easily decide which of the signal is a good one, where both 2 or all 3 of them are confirming, and which is not such a convincing setup. So when you see signals like this where all the 3 are in sync, you can go full position size. For lower conviction, you reduce your position size to 50%. So you can see how it broke out from this MB and went on to trend lower into the close, the put, whereas the calls only got IB signals after that. And it went on to get back to this 420 level. So this is how the 3 window mode helps us. And what I'll do now is we'll take the individual order flow of 3 minutes of the Nifty futures, the call and the put which we saw. So let us quickly start with the Nifty order flow, the 3 minute order flow. And we have this option to go back to the start of the day. And we'll quickly see where we saw intent coming in. So this was the gap up open, and the gap up open was giving us both kind of volumes. You can see the cot was green here, then red here, but this was inventory was getting adjusted. So important thing here was we were holding the gap up. You can see how we had zeros on the sell side here, and because it was a higher open, it was in favor of the bulls, and we mainly held the VWAP. Then finally, where did we see intent? We saw intent here. After building a base at this 25330, which was the overlapping POC of the first 2 bars, the order flow showed us intent over here. So what was our first trade of the day? Go long above this IB3. So 25379 is your long trade, and your stop loss would have been low of this bar 25340. The fact that this IB3 is coming right at VWAP gives it even more better chance of giving you the respective targets. So you can see how this was a very good signal. You have zeros on the sell side. The POC is right at the bottom. So if you go through the book and you see the order flow signals, this kind of a signal is one of the best you can get. At VWAP, starting of the day, higher open, the buyer is in control and you get an IB3. The POC is lower. That means the buyer is right below and you don't have any supply. And what were the targets? The targets was 25416 and 25454 if you go long above this signal. So once, and as I mentioned, the first entry is always the best. So you got this IB3 and again another IB3 came up. So this IB3 also was a good one because it was coming right next to this. But as you can see, the quality wise, this IB3 was much better. The POC was right at the lows and we are getting the first move away from VWAP. Here you have already seen a good move away. This still gave you the first target. If you would have taken a long on this IB3 25417 with a stop loss of 25375, it still gives you the target which was at 25459. But still this was being little late to the party. And you can see here you have zeros on the upside. You don't want these kinds of order flow bars. You want more volume participation, especially on the buy side when you are going long. So then we continue to move higher. And this was the third IB3 of the day. So this IB3 also was a good one considering the POC was right in the middle. But the worrying thing for this was the upside was showing us 0. So this was more looking, and this was more of swipes. You are not getting much number. So this was looking more like a swipe and a short covering move, which was happening. And here, the next bar where this IB3 got activated, you can see there is absolutely no demand coming in. The demand is drying up here. And you got some big reds. And this turned out to be a RS signal. So this is telling you this is the time where we got that IS3 in the call. I will come to that when we see the call order flow. So this is clearly telling us that now you need to book out your longs. And yes, because the open is strong and we are above VWAP, we will look for a fresh IB signal to get back into long side, because you can see this dip is holding VWAP. So this is a sign that the buyers are still defending the VWAP. But to go fresh long, we need a fresh IB signal like this at VWAP. So, but what happened? This is the 10-15 bar where we broke VWAP decisively. And why we can say that? Once we broke VWAP, you can see it was never able to come back above VWAP. So this was telling us that now the buyers are losing the plot, and now you can look for downside or longs in puts. So this went on to drop lower and even broke the IBL, which was at 25912. So this became a range extension trade, but we are only looking at initiative signals today. So I'll quickly go here, and you can see here in this H. So we saw where the IBL was, the initial balance low. It was at 25312, I think. So you can see how this bounce was held right at that IBL level. So you are getting an RS. So this is telling you that the seller is still holding the IBL. First it was the VWAP, then the order flow is showing us an RS at IBL. So it is telling us that there is more downside to come. And you can see how again in the G period, we got a similar kind of a move. We went on to make new lows. But here you can see at these new lows, I was talking to you why this 25,200 was important. At this new lows, you can see how you are getting zeros on the sell side. So there was no supply being added at this 25,200 level. So this was the order flow was very clearly showing us this. There was no initiative move being made by the sellers at the lows of the day. And that is the reason today we had 3 TPOs right at the same level, because supply was not willing to add. So what we saw then was from this no supply bar, we again made a bounce. But you can see where in the G period, the bounce stalled. bounce stalled again right at this IBL level. 25312 was the high we made in F, and 25308 was the high we made in G, and you have zeros on the buy side. So when this is showing you no demand, you know that the auction is still weak because we are below the VWAP, below the IBL. So you are looking for a test of these lows again and maybe a fresh low going forward if supply adds there. So this continues, and you see again that 25,200 being tested. Here I'll point you to this IS signal. So this was a good IS signal in the sense the volume was very low. It was just 400 contracts, but still it was in sync with the day structure. So what this IS had to do was go on to break below the lows, and on the break of lows, we had to see some fresh selling coming in, because it is only volumes which will give you the range. If there are no volumes being added when you are making new lows on the sell side, how can you expect more downside to come? So that is the reason this IS3, although it got activated, what it did in the next bar was telling you that if you are short, you have to come out. Why? Because you can see you've got 5 rows of zeros on the sell side here. Again, the next bar, you got 2 rows of zeros. So it is very clearly telling in this 25200 was the low which we made in the F period also. So this was in the I period. So even in the I, we saw clearly that there was no supply adding. So as long as you don't see sellers adding here, you cannot look for more downside. So what they were doing, they were holding previous day's VWAP and POC level. So that was being held by the buyers. The sellers were not ready to add. Again, we made a dip here, and you can see you got an RB. So this is how you read the order flow, not just intent, not just the initiative signals, but at important levels, the VWAP, the IBL, the IBH, or the day's low or previous day's references. You need to see intent by the player to trade in that direction. When you are not seeing intent by the sellers at the lows of the day, you know that it is time to book profits if you are short. Yes, this is not a place to go long because there is no confirmation that longs will uh, be benefited, because you don't have an IB signal, and that IB signal comes here. So what again? I would again see this IB signal also came on low volumes. That is the reason you need to know, identify which signals are good and which signals are not that good. So we saw the IS signal on 400 contract. This was slightly larger, but not as big as you want that IB signal to be. Order flow on 3 minutes, you are expecting at least 1000 plus contracts for a good IB or an IS signal. So what did this do? We did get about this, but what happened here? You're not getting any buyer confirmation. You're getting zero on the buy side. So when you're seeing this, when it makes a lookup above and you're not able to get buying, you know that you need to scratch this long if you have got into this on activation of this 25273. And once the POC is immediately broken, you know that the longs are still not coming in here. So you need to wait for them to come. This was a good IS signal. It has got volumes, it has got an LLT, the POC is right at the top. You got a 1252 red, and you definitely want to trade this signal. You go short below this 25230, and your stop loss is this 25269. So the first target of this IS signal was 25193 based on this range. So again, you don't blindly just go by the target, you also take into consideration what the day is doing. So when we went lower, what did we see? It did probe lower. What was holding? The 25200 level again was holding. And what did we see here again? Zeros on the sell side. So no doubt that the signal is good, but when it is not even able to give you the target one, and it is not breaking the 25200, you're not getting sellers here, you know now it is time to book. So definitely you would want to book some part at this level and wait for that to break and come back to cost in your short trade, because you don't want to risk, or at least this POC. So immediately in the morning we saw, and again this was in the K period where we stalled. So this was clearly telling you that this is not going down. And once this held, what did we get? We got a powerful IB signal in this bar. So this was the, I think, the highest volumes of the day. You have 7,793 contracts with one big 5,000 contract guy right at the lows of this bar. So this was as good as a signal you can get. Yes, if you follow the rollover part, and if you see the February series, there was a opposite number here, a number in that. But nonetheless, what this was showing you was, it definitely, all IB signals tell you what your risk is. So this was definitely a very good sign. You need to go long about 25280. Your stop loss would be 25246. And this was the best signal of the day considering the volume in the range. And you can see how immediately it not only went to VWAP, it gave you another IB signal at VWAP, and it went on to give those targets. So the target of that was 25316 was the first target, and 25351 was the second target. So accordingly, we could have taken this, and the stop loss after you enter would be, after you hit the first target, would be your cost. So 25280 would be the trailing stop loss for the remaining target. And you can see how we did get some sellers coming back here in this 236 bar. You got an RS, and you again tested VWAP. This test of VWAP showed us no supply at VWAP. So it was looking strong, but then again, as it hit the target 25351, you saw again an RS being formed. And then again, we got a swipe lower, and you can see how this swipe again on high volumes did break below VWAP. But what was the low? 25281. And why is this significant? This is exactly the high of where the first IB signal was. So if you are holding longs based on this signal, you would still, your cost is still not come. And here it is very classically showing you zeros on the sell side. So this, what does this tell? This tells us that this buy side signal is still valid. And immediately you get another IB signal here. And we come back above VWAP, and it was the fag end of the day, but still this IB also gave us the target late into the day also. It came at 306, and at 306 you go long about 25338. Your stop loss is 25299, and your targets would have been 25377 and 25416. So 25377 was hit, but the remaining 25416 was not hit. And again, if you would have taken a long based on this last IB signal, this also gives you the first target of 25395. So 25369 was the buy above signal, and the stop loss would have been 25343. And you can see how IB signals, when they come, not just the targets, but their entries also will give you important level. So you saw how the 25280, the first IB signal entry held. And then again, this 25338 held in this lows. So it is gives you more confidence to hold on to longs and hold on for bigger targets. So this was the order flow of the Nifty futures. So if I put it in a nutshell, if I give it back, take you back to the line chart. So we can see how these first two signals of IBs in the A period were very good trades. And then we had nothing much to talk about. The IS signal here failed. It came only on 400 contracts. And this was a good IS signal. But this 25,200 was refusing to show us supply today. So this IS activation got aborted prematurely. 25193 was the target, the first target, but we had, it could only give us 25201. But then again, this IB signal in the K period, K we give lot of importance, was an important one, and it went on to give multiple targets, and this high of 25280 held. It held this and gave us a fresh IB into the close. So you can see 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4. So we had four good intent driven signals today in Nifty futures. So let me now quickly move on to the 25,000 call. And they will match. Only difference here in the 25,000 call was it gave us an IB signal much earlier when Nifty futures could not break the 25201 level. It gave us an IB signal there, and this was where previous day's VWAP was. So when at the previous day's VWAP test is showing you an IB signal, you know that is being defended. So I'll just quickly go to the order flow chart of this, and we'll see what were the signals we got in this. I'll just increase the PPR size to 2. And same thing here, you can see how this IB3 was matching with the Nifty futures IB signal also. 414 was your buy, stop loss would have been 380. And the targets was 447, 480 and 513. So you can see how the first signal entry would have given you almost all the 3 targets. And here you see 513 was the third target based on this entry of 414. And you can see we have hit 507.6 and it is given you an IS. So once you get an IS, you come out of all long trades. So this upside is valid and the target for this is valid only till you continue to get IB signals or the market is trending higher on 30 minutes. But once you get an opposite signal, IS3, you come out and you wait for a fresh signal. So I'll come to the 30 minutes and I'll show you why it stalled at this 508. And you can see here how it was very clearly showing us that now the calls is being taken over by the sellers. So from 507, 472 was the sell below. It went on to make a low of 429. And this is where we stalled later in the day. The high was right at this 429, which was broken with this IS. So here in the put call, there's nothing much to do. If you are a seller, yes, you can use these signals to go short and accordingly book profits and trail your position. Same thing which we saw in futures. The pullback was holding this IS signal. And once we broke below the IBL, that became resistance. You can see how this IBH showed us an RS. It was showing us rejection in the F period and then again in the G period. In the G period, you see we have got an IB3. So this is a good signal. This is at VWAP. But this IB3 needs activation. It'll get activated only above this level. And when you have the POC in the VWAP of the option also aligned nearby, so this signal would have been a good one had it got a follow through after this bar with another IB3. So, but what did we do? We stalled right here and this IB3 never got activated. So that is how you need to look out for. And in options, it is all about momentum, and momentum in options you will get only when it is above the day's VWAP. So you can see how after that IB3, we again drifted lower in the call, but this 266 was holding. And we will see that 266 was VWAP from yesterday in the market profile and the 30-minute order flow chart. And see, here again we get this IB3, but here you can see the IB3 activation is not showing you any volumes on the buy side. And in the order flow chart, you have these nice NPOC lines which are left behind. So these NPOC lines act as resistance or support. So when you're getting this IB signal, you want these NPOCs to be taken out and then move back above VWAP. Only then you will get more upside in the option. What happened here? they were not able to take out. It hit the first NPOC and you're getting RS signals, 0 on the buy side, 0 on the buy side, 0 on the buy side, 0 on the buy side. 4 consecutive bars, the NPOC got tagged, but you are not getting any buy side volumes in that option. So it was very clear that the sellers are holding this level. And that is the reason we again got a move lower, and this signal which I was talking about right at the start of the K period, we didn't get an IB in the Nifty futures, but we got this at previous day's VWAP in this call. So this was a good aggressive trade, and at this point it was a contra trade. Why? Because we were trading this IB3 at the lows of the day. Because for the trend to change, it needs to get back above VWAP and it needs to hold the VWAP. It needs to show some green bar on an IB3 at VWAP. So it was just a contra trade, and here at VWAP we needed to sustain. And here you can see how this IB3 activation, once we got back above VWAP, this 319 was holding in this option. You can see again we saw how the level was respected in the futures, and you can see how this 320 high was respected in this dip. 322 was the low we made. So this did not only gave the targets, but it also showed us that this is being defended. So once it held, and if you're out of your calls, there is a good setup to again go back above the VWAP with a stop loss at this level. And if you still don't want to go aggressive and want to wait for the IB signal, you wait for the IB signal and then go long. So even this last IB signal, which got activated above 398, I think, gave you 393, gave you the target. And I was talking about that 429 being that reference. We stalled right there today. So this was about the 25,000 call. Let us now make a quick look at the 25,000 put. And I would also want to take you to the 30-minute order flow in the market profile chart of these two options, because that will give us better understanding of what the longer time frame references are, and it will help you to understand that these levels are not random. The high of the day and the low of the day today in both the put and the call were not random numbers. They had a major reference on the bigger, higher time frame. So yeah, this 155 was the low in this call. Here there is no trade, there is no IB signal here, and this is where you got the first IB signal. So about 240 you go long, and your stop loss is 208. You go on to hit the target one, and then you cut down because your stop loss is your trailing stop loss, which is cost is hit. So that is the first trade which you are out, and here you get the second IB3 here, and again the same 240 is your support, which was the IB3 high. So you again go on to get multiple targets on the upside. And here when you get this IB signal at the VWAP or at the IBH or the IBL, they are important cues given by the market that the option wants to continue in that direction. So as long as this 250 was holding in this put, you could look for long side trades. But once that 250 broke, you can see how the low made here was right at 250. You know that now the upside is done in this. So you can see how it took support at the IBH. This was in the F period. We saw the opposite happening in the futures in the call. And then again, we went on to get a dip again in the G period, and where again this 250 held. So order flow very clearly gives you the signals, and it gives you follow-ups also. Not just the IB signals, it also these RB signals at important references also tell you that the trend in that direction is still not done. And you can see once that 250 broke in this put, that is where you know that now the upside is done. So this is where you got the first IA signal. So this is matching with the IB signal we got in the call. So this is telling you now it is over. And see, you can see so clearly how that 250 was broken with a big red bar, and immediately afterwards you got an IA signal. So when you're looking at this, you know that now it is changed. And how do you get the confirmation? When the auction tests the IBH, it is now showing us RS. So the IBH was first showing support, it got broken, it gave an IS, it went lower, it held the 200 level, which was just above the POC. But in the move back above IBH, it shows us RS. So it was telling us that the PLR is on the downside, and we continue to make lower lows. So this is about the put and the call. I'll now quickly move on to the order flow and the market profile chart. We will go with the call first. 25,000 call. So if I take you to just a couple of sessions back, 20th of January, we had an extension handle in this 25,000 call. And we will go to that date's order flow also. So this is the 30-minute order flow chart of 20th, and you can see how you got this IS30 in that call and how we got a range extension, and this IS30 bar, the VWAP of that 30-minute was right at that 508. So I'll just zoom it more and you can see this, and this extension handle was also very close by. 502 was the extension handle, and this VWAP of 508 is where we stalled the up move today. The upside, it was not a coincidence. This was showing us rejection. This was a sell side reference, and when we went up at the start of the B period, we only have one B TPO to show. We have spoken about how in market profile you need to see acceptance and rejection. So this was a classic rejection, and it came at an important reference. So if I go back to today's chart, you can see how the bullish stalled right at that 508. And once you got that IS3 on the shorter time frame, you know that this extension handle, this VWAP of the IS signal is not holding. So let me now, so that is why this is so important. And yes, one more important point which I wanted to show you was this VWAP from yesterday. So where is the VWAP? And you can see where the lows of the K period was. And right at the lows in the K period on the 3-minute order flow, we got an IB3 in this call. So you can see how you got an IS3 at a sell side reference and how you got an IB3 at the buy side reference, yesterday's VWAP. And that gave us some good trading setups in this option. So coming to the put now, the 25,500 put, and you can see the lows of the day. 155 was not any random number. 156 was the POC from the 20th. So just like how we saw the call holding that VWAP of the IS30, you saw the put taking support. Same thing. What we saw in the call, opposite is happening here. You're seeing rejection at this POC. So once we got back above this 194 level, which was the VWAP of the A, with this as a stop loss, this was a good 30-minute time frame long. And once we got this IB signal, and again, I would want to show you where we stalled also today, because that is what we were talking about. This VWAP from yesterday, 335, is where we were stalling. You can see how the order flow is left NPOC at 341. And in spite of us getting two IB30s, we were not able to get above that 341 level. That was stalling. So that is how you need to make use of these order flows. These are very potent, powerful tools, and they are good on all time frames. So it is based on us how we want to use them. For execution, we use the 3 minute. For bigger time frame references, we use the 30 minutes. So you can see how the 30 minutes references set up for some beautiful trades in both the call and the puts. And going forward, as far as the till the budget is over, we can expect more two-way moves. So these are the tools which will help us to be instead. So that is it today from my side, guys. I hope this was helpful and you can make use of these tools going forward, and you can use order flow in a much better way. Wait for where you are seeing intent, because intent will drive the price. So IB signals are what we want to look out for, and the 3 window mode is a good tool to have a full day indicator. So thank you guys for joining in. That is it for today from my side. And for any feedback, do mail us at support@vtrender.com. You have my WhatsApp number given. For any queries regarding these sessions, you can ping me on WhatsApp also. Yes, NPOC gets plotted automatically. NPOCs are naked POCs, the POCs which are not visited. All these concepts have been explained beautifully in the book. So make sure you have that book and you go through them to get well versed with what we use at VLD or VTrender charts. So have a great evening, guys, and let's catch up next week for yet another 5 p.m. session.